Okay, we are back and ready to enter the Matrix once again. Once again, I'm joined by Nikolai Bratkovsky. Nikolai, big question for you in terms of what this Matrix is and how it ties into the concept of success. Because, especially, I think if we look at social media, if we look at people's desires, if we look at what the former, I guess not current, but say former version of Matrix, what were its values and everything intertwined with that, you know, kind of the first question I had, well, is success a product of actual free will, or is it a product of determinism? Like, is the Matrix going out there and specifically pinpointing individuals and saying, okay, you're going to be successful, you're not, or what is success when we're tying it and looking at it through the lens of the Matrix?
Mm-hmm. So, first of all, hi, Mitch, and thanks for really good question. There are multiple layers to that, and I'll start with one we already touched on. The simple definition of metric of success is happiness or joy. And if we come back to some of the stuff we touched on in the previous episodes, at the level of a biology or bioenergetics, happiness and joy is just the amount of energy that's passing through the body. The more energy that's passing through the body, the more joyful and happy we feel. And that happens when we align with our purpose. So, and we've chatted about purpose in the past couple of episodes. So, when we are aligned with what we're supposed to do here, then we feel happy and joyful. So ultimately, we came here to do a specific thing on the planet. That's everybody's like subconsciously everybody's seeking their purpose. It's like they know on a cellular level, if they understand and align with their purpose, then they'll be happy because they've seen many examples of that around them, and everybody confirms that, and etc. And that's how this matrix or the world works. Then another thing is another layer to this where the metric is distorted. People think that the success is measured in whatever metric they've taken on as part of education, upbringing, culture, and etc. Let's say monetary success, status, power. There are many versions, popularity, many versions of that. But in reality, the second layer directly ties to the first layer. It's all about evolution. And what I mean by that is ability to develop new qualities. So soul loaded here into the matrix, and the first version of the matrix is it's an advanced school of evolution. So all types of souls come here, all from young to advanced souls, to rapidly develop. And by develop, I mean soul is ultimately energy. If we strip everything, all these, more, let's call them more religious statements, it's just energy. It's a cocktail of different, it's an energy, it's a mix of different energies. And those energies want to learn how to interact with other types of energies. And that's what the evolution is. So the soul loads already knows, let's say, how to interact with energy A, B, C, and it wants to learn how to interact with energy D, E, and F. So learning how to interact with those energies D, E, and F is ultimate success. And that's evolution. That means you've learned something new. And because you've learned something new, you get more energy traveling through your body, hence you're happy. And same, all the purpose, all the stuff around purpose are, in fact, as part of the journey, you'll have to learn how to interact with new types of energies to align with your purpose. So those how those pieces come together. And that's why, like, all these illusionary metrics that we're here to win by having the most resources, the most power, the most influence, the most popularity. That's a distorted values that make this evolutionary school more challenging, but also more rewarding. And the reason I say that is because if you can find light in a room of darkness, you're demonstrating that you're a species, a soul, or whatever that can truly be sovereign and survive and succeed anywhere and everywhere. And the fifth matrix is kind of a dark room with very little light. It's like we have to here walk through life and figure out not how to step on landmines. And landmines are everywhere because that's the way this current world is. Everything is trying to pull you in. I was like, oh, you need more popularity. Spend all your energy to have more followers. Or like you watch movies, it's like it's all about material success, and everything is trying to pull you in all types of different directions. And a person who can still be able to sense and align with their intuition and do what feels right and what makes them happy truly wins. Because then the matrix releases it doesn't have to create all these lessons and gives them everything that they desired, which at the end of the day, the deepest level is happiness. Then the comfort and all the goodies for the avatar to be happy as well. Like I don't know, somebody enjoys example with Maxim comes to mind. He's like as he aligns more and more with his purpose, he has more resources. He buys himself a buggy and he goes, and part of his desires is to explore territories. So he just jumps into his buggy and goes driving off-road in the middle of nowhere, finding all types of weird stuff. So the more we align, the more all these additional benefits starts just showing up without any effort.
So to bring it back to what you were talking about in terms of some of these specific things, specifically say money and power, like what does Matrix make out of those concepts or institutions? Like is Matrix actually placing this distorted want or desire for money and power to kind of mess with us, or where is this construct even coming from in the Matrix?
So once again,
and why do we like it so much? That's the other thing. Or why do humans get such an affinity for these concepts?
Multiple things here. Let's start with the fact that for a lot of, let's call humans or souls that loaded here, they're learning to interact with this type of energy. And what I mean by that is, let's say power, right? There's a specific expression of energy, and there is a healthy power and there is toxic power. And in this environment, by having such a spectrum of expression of people being still today slaves to, per se, running countries, major companies, and etc., with such a spectrum of power, the soul can load into a unique environment to learn what is unlearned yet, how to interact with that energy at any point in spectrum. Because to truly become master of something, you need to explore the full range, right? If you've only experienced totalitarian power and you think you've learned that energy, you haven't, because you haven't been in a place of having zero power, right? And that's how you find the middle, when you've experienced the two extremes. And it doesn't mean you have to load multiple lives into one and the other. It could be in one lifetime where you literally can come from nothing, then go to everything, then lose everything again, just to find that middle. And by touching both, we can touch the both extremes by experiencing them, meaning living through them, or we can touch the both extremes by understanding it, meaning by like sensing it. So we can just go to one extreme and go a little bit towards the other extreme. And because we've already been on one, we're like, whoa, so I've been poor, I had no impact. Now I'm starting to express, and all these people were like enslaving me, I don't know, taking control of me. And now I'm like, I have power and I'm trying to do the same to others. But you've already seen that from that place. So you don't have to go to the other extreme to see it, right? We can see it from any point on the spectrum. But to fully realize it, it requires a lot of reflection, pondering, self-awareness, observation of the world. And that's why what we mentioned in our previous episode, what Rumi says, silence is a language of God. The more room we have in our life to just ponder, to reflect, the more we can realize those things without living through them. And if we cannot realize them through using this method, then the matrix will create events. So you realize that by going through the events, by experiencing it, because then the person has to reflect. Like, let's say you have nothing and you're like, okay, you're like, oh, and this is not necessarily comfortable one way or the other, and you resist that, but then you're like, okay, I accept it, and I'll just do what I can to get out of here, to change this environment, to change my situation. You change it, you succeed. Now you run $1 billion company. But you drive everyone like hardcore, all your employees, all the people around you. Now you've enslaved everyone around, and you're not realizing it. Okay, we'll take your $1 billion company away, and whatever, some lawsuit starts, and you go back to zero. And that type of shock forces people to ponder. And I think it was Marcus Aurelius who said that: when we win, we celebrate; when we lose, we ponder. So Matrix creates so-called, but at the end of the day, we don't win and we don't lose. It's all illusion. It's just the states. In one state, we ignore learning. In another state, we're forced to learn. So why not just to choose to ponder about life and what's unfolding in life, and then we're in more balanced state where the pendulum does not swing as hard from one end to the other.
Got it. So in terms of, because you were mentioning that, the true, or I would say the real honest metric of success would be joy and happiness, right?
Yep.
So where along the way, or even perhaps why, did the metric get distorted? Because it seems like we all notice that a lot of people aren't happy. You got people all on the SSRIs, or they're in therapy, or a whole number of things, and people are
we're
chasing.
just chatting. Kids as young as 10, 15 are already on SSRIs and a bunch of other things.
Exactly.
From very wealthy families with very strong values. Not like that foundation's not there.
Yeah. So where did this metric get distorted, and why, perhaps?
So the context, we have to look at a broader context of the planet. There, and this is gonna get a bit woo-woo. So basically, the planet, one of the egocentric things of humans is perceivingly we're the only advanced civilization out there in space, and that's a major misconception. One of the reasons we perceive and feel that way is because there is actually a so-called quarantine around that planet where we are limited what we can perceive and have access to in outer space. So we are so-called in a somewhat of a you can, like, people call it simulation or whatever, but less of a simulation, because Matrix can be perceived as simulation, but it's just a nature of this planet, of how the operating system of this planet runs. But this quarantine does not prevents majority of population to perceive a grander picture. But there's already a lot of data points that are either like hidden or distorted. Like, all the stuff is coming out about UFOs and all these let's call them all types of unexplainable events. But more and more stuff is getting studied and understood. So where I'm going with this is, this planet is unique because this body and the planet took in a very diverse set of civilizations, that outer civilizations. It's the same body, but our souls formed in other places of universe, and our souls had experiences of other places of universes. And our souls have that memory, and that's why things like hypnosis and a few other different modalities that can regress you back to the origin of the souls will start describing things. So if you, for example, take so your soul has formed around the Vega star. If you take people with the souls that formed around Vega star and you regress them using hypnosis back to experiences around that star, two people who've never met, have never talked to each other, will describe the same things. And now there's a lot of data. Like, if you read Michael Porter, he focused specifically on how the soul incarnates in the body in the book Journey of Souls. And but he only looked specifically at mechanics of this planet. If you take it further and you regress a person or your point of consciousness to a point where that soul had experiences of other places of this universe, two people who've never talked to each other, whose soul come from the same area or sector of universe, will describe the same things. Logically, that's impossible.
Yeah.
But and there are so many examples of that. Whoever's interested can double click on that. There are books written about that, and etc. So where I'm going with this, there is a high vibrational space of universe and low vibrational space of universe. And high vibrational space of universe is just closer to the point of singularity, or to the point of Big Bang, from where what we call primary consciousness started expanding from and creating this universe and structuring the universe. So that's a higher vibrational space. And there is infinite, let's call it, the closer you're to the center, the more energy is available. The further away you're from the center, the less energy is available. So civilizations but life exists in a low energy, low vibrational space. So the life that exists in that space of the universe grew up or evolved in a state of scarcity. And the life that has evolved and grew in a high vibrational space, or the space where there's a lot of energy, grew up in a space of abundance. So what's happening here, souls had different experiences, mixed and loaded, because this planet exists. Milky Way is a galaxy that rotates. And as it rotates, there is this, let's call it, somewhat imaginary boundary where we go from high vibrational space to low vibrational space. It's like we're right in between. As the galaxy rotates, this planet crosses from high vibrational space to low vibrational space and back. And that's, if you take millions and millions of history of this planet, that has happened multiple times throughout history. So hence, this planet has been inhibited by avatars that had souls that came more from high vibrational space, and then it has been inhibited by avatars with souls that came from low vibrational space, space of scarcity, space and space of abundance. So there is in Vedic teachings or in Vedic terminology, there's this term called Kali Yuga or Dark Ages. And we are actually, as a planet, are exiting the Kali Yuga or Dark Ages, because the planet, not just because it finally rotates and the galaxy and the whole space rotates and comes out of low vibrational space, there's also there are other bigger things at play, or bigger processes at play, with what's taking this whole solar system and taking it to a higher vibrational space faster. And it's interesting, I just saw on X, everybody thinks here's the sun and the planets rotate. That's the visual. No, the sun is moving as well, and it's all the planets are moving with the sun, and that's the part that people are missing. People think we're stationary. Everything is moving in space. So this solar system right now is rapidly traveling from low vibrational space to high vibrational space where there's more energy. But because this planet and the solar system was in a low vibrational space, there were a bunch of civilizations we've basically got exposed and let's call it influenced by values of low vibrational space and civilizations, which means basically the planet has been around in the Kali Yuga Dark Ages in a space of less energy. More souls came with predisposition of living in a state of scarcity and brought their values here, and those values became dominant values of the current version of human civilization. Hence, I don't have enough of power, I don't have enough of resources, I don't have enough of something, some kind of scarcity. But that type of mentality does not work anymore where we're going, because the energy will be, it's already infinite. And yes, there was less energy on this planet. As a result, it was easier for us to behave that way, because subconsciously the bodies felt like, wow, there's not enough energy on this planet. And examples of Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison, there were already inventions that showed that, for example, electricity can be taken out of unique places where you don't need, like, I don't know, solar panels, oil and gas and etc. Things are more readily available on this planet than we perceive. And where we're going, they're even going to be more dense and readily available. And that's why, like, I'll give you one of the examples. One of the trends is developing is some people, like, fasting is becoming popular. But for example, if we go back, I don't know, a few thousand years ago, fasting would be a little bit harder because there is less energy in this part of space, because a huge part that sustains the body is energy, and there's just more energy now, and there are more and more people that can achieve fasting, whereas previously it would be only advanced yogis or advanced practitioners who could, let's say, not fast for 30 days. Now there are people, and like there's this guy who even does courses. I think he's somewhere between Georgia and Russia or something like that, where he doesn't eat. He's like so-called, he eats prana or energy. And it's possible now, and it's becoming more and more possible because there's more and more energy. So in a nutshell, all that became such a deep part of our civilization, because the planet for few thousand years existed in a state of scarcity. So it registered almost on a DNA level of this bioenergetic suit, which is our body, that everything is scarce. Hence, we constantly have to fight for things. Hence, we need to have something: money, power, popularity, something that gives us ability to survive in this environment. Where we're moving, it becomes irrelevant because it's everything is just going to be enough of everything to everyone.
So in terms of, because I was actually going to ask that question next, if we're looking at planetary resources, then
Yeah.
is it that, so are planetary resources, say, like, let's just use for example, like oil, is oil finite or infinite, or is the oil finite but energy is infinite? Can you talk about that, or how does that show up?
So oil is finite and not at the same time. And what I mean by that, we have a very rudimentary understanding of how this planet operates as a being. First of all, we treat it as a rock, whereas it's a being, it's alive. There's just like things happening in the center of the planet, things happening at the top of the planet. There are oceans, there are lands, there are continents, they move. There are magnetic poles that we're coming to a point of them flipping again, and there's proven studies that every, I think, 25,000 years, South and North poles flip, and as a result, a lot of oceans and waters and lands, things shift and etc. So, and that comes from this place of humans being egocentric, as if they are the smartest and they're just on this thing and they rule this thing. In reality, we are part of ecosystem. We're like ants.
I was going to say, are we more of a parasite, or what are we in terms of the ecosystem?
No, we're not parasites. We are huge subset of civilization has parasitic behavior because of what I described previously, because the civilization has the value of low vibrational civilization, which is basically scarcity. Hence, I want to accumulate, or I want to steal, I want to destroy. I'm going to do whatever it takes for this body to survive. So there is a lot of parasitic behavior. But in reality, we are part of the ecosystem that make this planet interesting, because planet without carriers of consciousness is kind of does not develop, does not evolve itself. So for a planet to host a carrier of consciousness, because carrier of consciousness is a micro version of God. We create things, we destroy things, we make things better, we make things worse. Given we were existing in the past around 7,000 years in this low vibrational space in a state of scarcity, we were predominantly parasitic to planet. But where we're shifting to the version V6 of the Matrix will be all about creating. So taking the knowledge that got accumulated in the energetic body of this planet over millions of years and creating things that some people, like, we already talk about in sci-fi. Like, for example, everybody talks about Elon Musk, amazing entrepreneur. Yes, he's an amazing entrepreneur at packaging existing technologies, but no real breakthroughs, because the space travel that he has created is, yes, it's a financially more effective Soviet rockets, if we really strip it, right? And that's where he started. Money out of PayPal, he went bought Soviet rocket boosters and really improved technology. Same with Tesla and batteries and etc. So it's like advanced incremental improvement. But the true breakthroughs that we're going into, and right now that's part of the quarantine, this civilization does not have access to more advanced technologies, because guess what the civilization does when it discovers them? First applies them in military to fight for more resources. So as we now get out of this state of scarcity and stop fighting for shit and learn to create rather than go and take from someone, very different type of technologies will be available. The type of space travel that right now is only described in sci-fi. For example, like Foundation, what's his name? Isaac Isaac Asimov.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and there's a great series, Apple TV series about that. Some of like space technology and some of the stuff that is described there. This is like actually a good portrayal of how the rest of universe exists. We just don't, because the planet is in quarantine, we don't have access to those technologies, and we don't see those other civilizations, or we don't see. There's so many cases of sightings of UFOs, aliens, and etc. But hey, we didn't see anything. Nobody saw anything, right? So, but because of the quarantine, it's all limited. And I'm not going to get into details of why there is a quarantine, why like things cannot come in and out as easily, even though they do and they all exist here and etc. So basically, coming back to that, oil is finite perceivingly, but we haven't discovered what we haven't discovered. Like, what if somebody is like, I don't know, walking around some unpopulated part of Africa and pokes their finger and the oil starts coming out? How do you know if was it there before? Or it wasn't there before, right? Or the planet decided that this civilization needed a little bit more of that resource because they haven't fucking figured out how to, do Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison shit to produce electricity. So we'll bring to the surface some kind of material that will result in formation of oil within, I don't know, 100 years. And was it there before? Wasn't there. So it is finite, and it's not finite because the planet is also a living organism that goes through the evolution and changes and etc. But the biggest thing is for us to navigate the construct that things are finite. And when we stop fighting for perceivingly finite things, we start focusing more on creating first individually and then co-creating together as collective. And then when we do that, that leads to abundance. But the thing is, the reason abundance is impossible in a current state of the civilization is because the economic system that we have adopted directly resembles, first of all, our state, which is scarcity. It was created from place of scarcity. Capitalism does not work if there is abundance, because prices have to grow, profits have to grow. If profits have to grow, you either have to sell more or increase the prices.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have abundance of everything, that means the prices has decreased, and there's only so much stuff that as a human you can accumulate and consume, right? There's only so many cars you want. On the fifth car, you're like, oh, I get zero joy from getting a car. And in the first place, you probably got very little, like few weeks of joy and happiness from acquiring the car. But on the fifth one, you're like, oh, fuck, this is not even a celebration. It's like, I don't even care. Can somebody please drive it and put it in a garage, right? So like, it all does not add up. That's why we right now stand at this very interesting crossroads in the civilization where all that came basically to the end. We're first row with popcorn, watching the system unravel itself. And like an example of abundance is AI, right? Like so much stuff. Like previously, to produce a movie, you needed a team of I don't know, a few thousand people to shoot, edit, and etc. You produce a movie and a story with AI, and that was one single person. Do you need to charge $10 for that movie? Maybe not, because your cost of producing was, I don't know, a few $1,000s. Maybe I distribute it for 10 cents, right? But how do you generate profits? So for a time being, now more people can buy it, right? But even that part breaks, because it's like people just, there's so much of everything. It's like, I just don't want any of that, because none of that results in true happiness and joy. It's perceived that by consuming things, we become more happy. No, that is not true, because happiness and joy comes from the energy. the material objects or entertainment or digital objects or whatever have some energy, but the amount of energy in them is not much. And so when we buy it, we get a little bit of that energy from that object. It gives us a little boost. That's why people get caught up in consumerism, because to them, the logic becomes, when I bought that purse, I get a burst of joy.
Yeah, it made me feel happy.
Exactly.
I remember you,
So
you spoke about this at length before.
Yeah. So basically people think, oh, that's how I get joy. And then they get lost in this consumerism behavior, consumerism behavior, just to learn that on the fifth purse, there's not much. And then they have to really keep digging and find out where's the actually where the actual happiness is.
So, well, a couple different ways I want to go with this. Well, first, let's go here. So what characteristics, because we were talking about success being harmony, happiness, as
evolutionary lessons as well. You're learning.
Okay. So if we're looking at those elements as success, what characteristics then breed success? You know, what are the human characteristics? Because if we were looking in sort of let's look at version 5 of the Matrix. If we were looking at materialism and money and power, people would probably argue, well, you need to be hardworking and you need to be really smart and you need to be, there would be a whole list of characteristics, that people should have or should acquire in order to be quote unquote successful. So if we're looking at what true success is, what are the actual characteristics that the Matrix is paying attention to or wants us to have?
And it's less about Matrix wants us to have. Matrix Matrix does not have a goal.
Okay.
Matrix that's how the operating system of this planet works. It mirrors everything to everyone, what's within them. Any inharmony you have is expressed in your outer world as inharmony. If there is a lot of anger accumulated, there will be always angry people around you fighting with you, around you, and etc. That's it. It's super simple. But it has been coded with a purpose, and the purpose was for us to evolve and become more harmonious, to learn, right? So that's the vector or the purpose of the fifth matrix. The sixth matrix is all about creation and co-creation. What else can be created? Because only people who've harmonized and learned how to be in that state of harmony will transition to the sixth matrix, because to be able to create and co-create on very advanced levels, you cannot be preoccupied by fighting with others. Right now, most of the population is preoccupied by fighting with others at micro and macro level. Yeah. Somebody fighting with a girlfriend to everywhere countries fighting between each other, and you don't need to go far. Open any news outlet right now. Tariff war in the news, whatever. So everybody's preoccupied, and only a small subset of population is like, I just want to create and invent. And it's like, but then also most of the people that right now create and invent because they want to have a better position when they fight. So even the motivation comes from a wrong place, right? It's like, to survive in the civilization and society, I need to get money or power or influence or whatever. So the initial motivation is even distorted. When a person is in harmony, they just want to create because they want to create, because that's what gives them joy, because that's their purpose. And for somebody, creating will be planting a bunch of rice fields and figuring out a better way of farming rice and figuring out a new maybe breed of rice, right? And for someone else, it will be building a new really advanced space technology that can travel outside of the solar system with humans on board. Yeah, I'd pause here and remind me of the question where we started.
Yeah, so it was, sort of what characteristics
Characteristics, yes.
breed success. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I guess I'd be saying, okay, well, what if I were to rephrase the question, what characteristics would be most useful in the sixth matrix then?
Well, yeah. To get to sixth matrix, let's talk about fifths. Like 99.99999% is still on fifths, and six is rolling out. And I would describe it in two main characteristics, and we shared it with you previously in the course. It's a way of warrior and way of water. So a way of warrior is misunderstood. People think they got to be fighters. Way of warrior, a true warrior, or at least in the Eastern way of understanding the warrior, is ability to accept any situation that is presented to you by the world. Truly accept, not resist. Meaning that, okay, I have to live in this country in this apartment. Cool, I accept it, rather than spend, I don't know, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year being like, why the fuck am I in this situation? Resisting it. So this ability to accept and openly take on any situation. It doesn't mean that we have to agree with it, but we accept it. We surrender to it, and we don't waste energy to fight it. So, and because that's how Matrix takes us from experience to experience. So the sooner we accept the new situation, the sooner we're calm, and we can understand why we're here, and come up with a plan how to move forward. The more energy we spend of, feeling victimized, feeling that it's not fair, being angry, resisting, the more energy we spend on not getting anywhere. So that's one. Number two is way of water. And way of water is water as it flows. It finds every possible crack. It finds the most effective, efficient way to move through space. But for that, it requires to be open-minded and agile in a different way. In a way of warrior, we have to be open-minded and agile in accepting what is, where we are. In a way of water, we become open-minded and agile in how we're going to go about it. Because some people will end up in situation and be like, okay, I surrender to the situation. But then to get out of this situation, this is the only path. I am going to work super hard and blah, blah, blah. And that might not be the case. You just need to look around and see what universe presented to you, and then connect to a person who has been already finally respond to that email that you were ignoring because you didn't like that person, and you respond to that email and the situation gets resolved, and you're like, well, but in your mind, you're like, I'm going to fucking fix the situation by calling the president of the country, and they're going to change laws and then spend next 15 years on how, versus 15 seconds of being open-minded. And that ultimately leads to the third one, which is, I would call intuition. It's all about intuition, but intuition is a very broad and vague term, because intuition is all about when you are open-minded to everything that world presents to you, when you're open-minded about how, then you're automatically so relaxed that you start sensing what and how and where and etc. And that almost leads to being more intuitive, because there are no rigid constructs that, no, the only right way is my way, or this way, or the way this book wrote, or the way this, influential coach or entrepreneur told me to do this. Everybody's journey is different, but we are too stuck in our set of constructs within different levels of our ego, and we use them as a very limited ways of navigating our surroundings. So we're constantly operating by like, oh, I have this in my library of how things can be. I'm going to take it on and I'm going to start trying what's going to work, rather than, I don't know how to navigate this best way. Matrix showed this to me, world showed this to me, and I'm open-minded. Oh, this like how this podcast started. We're like, we knew we have a podcast in Russian. We knew we wanted to do podcasts in English. And it was like, how do we do? It's like, maybe we use AI translate the Russian one. Maybe we do this, maybe we do that. And then I was like, you know what? It will all show itself. We go to dinner, you talk about podcasts, and you've done a lot of podcasts. You're starting your own podcast. And then I was like, oh, maybe we can just do this, because we already chat with you about a lot of this stuff, just at the dinners or coffees and etc. And it's like, why don't we just start recording? So it's kind of effortless for both people involved, and it's fun. And it's like, oh, okay, that's how we do it. I don't need to figure out all this AI translate. We're planning, like, we had all these different options, and it was effortless. And that's, so the more we can be in that state, of course, it's challenging. And when we truly achieve that state, that means we achieved inner harmony. So it's kind of like double-edged sword a little bit, or like not double-edged sword. It's like, was chicken first or egg was first?
Yeah.
So it's a similar thing. But the more we move into that state, the easier it is for us to move forward, the easier for us to get into that state of harmony.
And so another thing that, because we were sort of touching about this before the call a little bit, and well, this again would be perceptions, right? But there's probably a few listeners out there that would have the perception through their lens of the universe that, you know, sort of nefarious individuals often gain success, or somehow they get ahead. And my question was, well, what is the moral compass of the Matrix, or does it have a moral compass, or is any even concept of morality merely just a human construction and has anything to do with the Matrix?
So the morals are the universal laws that we talked about, I think, in a second or third episode. That's the way I would summarize it. And the first universal law is universal law of life. Basically, protect life and life's evolution, and everything else comes out of that. And there are exceptions to everything. Is for example, people misunderstand, oh, if I have to protect life, then I cannot kill anyone. If somebody's trying to take your life and you're not protecting your life, you just broke that universal law. And that's one of the misunderstandings. You start with protecting your life, and then protecting life of the people around you, and that expands, protect plants, protect animals, and then, but of course, like, for example, we exist in an ecosystem with, right now, the older version of ecosystem where there is less energy, hence we eat animals. And that's perfectly fine, because that's the ecosystem we exist in. That's where we get energy from now. In the future, we probably will not eat animals, as there's more and more energy, as the planet gets saturated with more and more energy. And as an example also, if there would be more protein dense vegetarian options, there's a lower chance we would eat animals. But if you really look at the nature, only subset of geographies retained that type of vegetation. Like, for example, Bali and Indonesia with, like, what is that called? Like, they have like all types of Thailand, all types of fruit that are very, very protein dense. And because this body has been protein based body, that's what we rely on. So that's the morals. Basically, that's like Matrix is aligned with universal laws. With that said, there are people who break universal, or people or other structures that break universal laws. And that is also part of evolution, to learn when we don't know how to interact with specific type of energy harmoniously in the beginning. There is the high chance of us doing it inharmoniously, but we can learn it very rapidly when things don't go well, and we're like, oh, I really like this interaction with this person didn't go well at all, didn't sound like a harmonious interaction. What can go differently? They learned and they interact, that gets resolved, and we move forward. But some people, takes lives for them to learn. So hence you'll have people per se breaking universal laws, but in reality they're learning because we're in school. So and if you cannot break universal law, how else do you learn? You don't, in some scenarios. Some people are very good at intuitive learning. Some people really need to get to the bottom of it and get themselves into the shittiest situation ever, right? So that's one thing. Another thing, that there's so much nuance, for example, why some people per se succeed in material world. Some people just learning how to interact with that form of energy, meaning a form of money energy. And hence Matrix, even if they're the dumbest avatar on the planet, Matrix will create events for them to have a lot of money energy around them, because that's part of the plan. And they'll randomly win, like they'll be given an inheritance, they lose that, then they'll win a lottery, and etc. So that's an extreme situation, but there are different variations of that.
Is that where we see sort of the individuals that we can often talk about as, oh, he or she has the Midas touch, where just seemingly whatever they touch turns to gold, or is that more of them being aligned in some fashion, or what is it?
There are many reasons. So I gave you one example. Then being aligned with what they're supposed to do on this planet, Matrix will give them resources, and more resources the more they're aligned to scale what they're supposed to do on this planet. Then there's a structure, there's a subset of people who basically part of let's call it systematic. We call it systematic dark. What it means is there's systematic light, systematic dark. Light creates, dark destroys. Both have to exist as yin and yang, because for us to evolve, something we created, let's say 100 years ago, doesn't serve us. It needs to be destroyed so we can create new. So like, and even if we look at all the deities or gods in different cultures, and like, for example, in Indian culture, Shiva is the energy of destruction. Without that energy, we cannot have a full cycle, because if you don't clean out the space, let's say you bought a land and there's a bunch of bush, you want to structure this land to be more harmonious for your type of usage and utility, you probably need to cut out some of the bush. That's using the dark energy per se to destroy that, so the new can be created, so you can grow different types of plants that produce food or produce beauty or produce blah blah blah, whatever it was purchased for. So the subset of people whose souls are learning to be part of the destruction structure or systematic dark, they have easier access to material resource, because it's more dense. It's a more dense energy. It's more per se material, and so for them, so for example, those type of people can steal and have nothing, and Matrix will reward them for that. And the reason Matrix will reward them for that is because it's their job to steal, and the Matrix will present the right type of people to steal from, because somebody else on the other side needs to learn not to put all of their energy or focus into material. If you are all about material and it gets stolen, you're broken. But then you're not sovereign. You're not true. You're not you're not a species that can survive if you're so dependent. So hence that systematic dark shows up, steals, and the person goes through the evolution of like, oh, maybe I can actually live without, all this money being stolen from me, because I can just continue creating and I'll produce more. Okay.
So would you say that our attachment to things or materialism could be a potential, I guess you could say, like benchmark or metric to where you are on your alignment spiritual journey, however you want to sort of frame it?
I think it's just one of many metrics, because for somebody like, so for example, in your scenario, that just because what your soul chose to learn and experience, that feels very intensely. There are many people for who they don't even think about it, and like some of them have billions, some of them have dimes. It's like they'll have nothing and they won't even think about it. And it's like, oh, that's just my life, and it's perfectly fine. So in your scenario, you're learning how to interact with that energy. That's why it's top of mind all the time. So that's why the experiences are so intense. For me, for example, I'm not learning to interact with that energy. It's just there. It's like, I think like spending 20 years in North America, a lot of um, mental constructs of importance of it were instilled in me. So hence I'm still learning. I'm learning somewhat how to interact with that energy, but not intensely as in your scenario. So that's why I kind of like spend time, send some focus there, but maybe it's like 10-20% of your focus. So for me, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I just needed to learn how to like manage it and how to value it, because it was like, oh, so like I like early on I learned that somehow I can always figure out how to make money even if I have zero, and they somehow magically show up from somewhere. So it's like, okay, I'm okay. But then in the moments when I'm losing it, for example, I would still get aggravated. I was like, what the fuck, right? So I'm still learning some aspects of that. In your scenario is just intensified, and so yeah, is different for everyone. Somebody loaded here how to learn how to, let's say, interact with a feminine energy, and that where all of their focus will be. Somebody else loaded here to learn how to interact with the energy of children, procreation, creating something new and unknown that can be scary, right? And the list goes on. So, and usually it's a set of energies that we're learning. So it's like you'll be learning 5 to 10 energies, I'll be learning 5 to 10 energies. So that's why we have different scenarios pop up. But if you really sit and reflect, you'll see probably 3-5 major recurring scenarios come up. It's just in different form and shape, and that just indicates those 3 to 5 energies are top priorities of what we're learning to interact with. And recently I had a call with a friend. She's a very successful private equity investor, and that was her biggest insights. The whole life is patterns, and if you have enough patience and stillness to notice the patterns, then you know the lesson you need to learn, the behavior that you need to harmonize or adjust, and then you can have happy, successful life. That's the frame she created herself by observing life for herself. Like that's the framework she uses for herself, and completely makes sense. That's because we came here to learn specific things. We have specific vector and etc. And it's all about that.
Got it. And lastly, like if we were to look at, say, gigantic, global institutions, and obviously, in terms of value creation, well, and maybe not. I'd like to know what your thoughts on this are. People would argue, okay, well, if you're getting to the level of a multi-billion-dollar global sort of company, you're achieving that because you're creating so much value for people in some sense, right? So if we took for an example like an Amazon,
Yeah.
what is the energy sort of behind that? And with that is does Amazon become its own energy, or is it still is the energy based off of Bezos in some fashion, if that makes sense?
Yeah, completely makes sense. So when somebody creates a company, they create that company with their energy initially, but then other people start contributing their energy there, right? And sooner or later, there might be zero energy of the founder, or could be still a lot of energy of the founder. And it's a separate entity that we call egregor. An egregor is just an energetic structure with its own unique parameters. It's like a reduced version of soul. Soul that loads into the body is an energetic cocktail. Egregor that we create is also an energetic cocktail. We just put in some of our energy, some of our feelings, emotions, desires, and etc. And we've created that being, energetic being, that starts becoming something in this world per se material, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be a service, a company, a product, a company producing products, and etc. And there's a major misunderstanding that we create. And by the way, just on the note of egregors, a brand, a political movement, a religion, all that is egregors. They're all creations and there are creations of us, the human beings here, and there are other types of egregors that are also creations. Country is an egregor. It's like country is an energetic structure that shares specific energetic parameters. Hence, we have cultures. And hence now there are like countries that are kind of getting destroyed by this crazy migration that is destroying cultures, that is against the energetic parameters of that egregor that was created, and that's creating conflicts and clashes and etc. because the egregor is trying to preserve itself. And similarly, as a human beings trying to survive and evolve, egregors have all the same functionality. They're trying to expand, grow, and the way egregors grow is by taking energy because they don't have their own energy source. So they take energy from wherever they can, which is basically from creators, which is humans. So the more we, let's say, buy from Amazon, the more energy we give it. The more we think about Amazon, the more energy we give it, and etc. The list goes on. So an egregor to become big, it has to create value or to reflect the current state of civilization. So, because you can kind of say, well, some egregors don't really create value, but like some kind of movements, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, they create value because people align with the values. I don't know, take BLM, right? Black
Yeah.
Lives Matters. In a specific point in time that there was tension, and that tension needed to come out somewhere. So there is energy that is stuck in people and they don't know where to put it out. That movement is created, and there is a lot of energy that will support those parameters because it was already waiting to come out. And hence you can say it did create value because it absorbed all that energy that otherwise could not come out or could not find a place to come out to. So at the end of the day, yes, something gets large if there is some kind of energetic support on a civilizational level. And that's why I think great entrepreneurs sense, or great leaders, I shall say, sense what world needs. So what kind of structure it needs to, so in some scenarios, it's like to meet a need where, hey, I like traveling and horses are slow. Let's create something that is more comfortable and goes further, right? We get a car. Or similarly, hey, let's take communism and socialism. It's like everybody's fed up with the feudal structure right? And there's like very few at the top that are rich at the cost of the blah blah blah. It was very top of mind with majority of population of the planet. We got communism. Then communism was executed in a very totalitarian dictatorship style because people were not ready for that type of system because they were still in a mindset of scarcity and taking from each other. You can't implement communism from that state. Hence, you have to prescribe it through dictatorship and very totalitarian regime. And people are like, wow, that's not fun either, because the central, it was supposed to self-build, but it couldn't self-build because a building unit, which is a human, was in a mindset of scarcity. So capitalism was a better reflection, right? It's like, I want my own shit and I want to do what I want to do. So now we've been given capitalism at the level of the whole planet, and we're coming to the end of that cycle because it also does not work as a system. And the planet is also transitioning to a different state, and that's a bigger topic also that we can double click on.
I could see next topic being economic structures in the economy and just how that all plays in. I think that'd be a beautiful rabbit hole to go down.
Anything else today we shall cover?
That's it for today.
Okay.
That is it. Like I said, that I think that gives a good background on success, what we're aiming for, what the matrix can give us, and what we need to figure out on our own in order to operate within this matrix under all these different conditions.
Yeah, and in a nutshell, it's the message throughout all of our conversation will come down to the same. We just unpack it from different angles. The more we as humans align to find our joy and happiness, the more we align with who we are, the more successful we are across every aspect of life. Because if as individual we're joyful and happy, that means we doing all the right things, hence matrix giving us all the necessary resources. Okay, so that means we're happy, healthy, wealthy, and then we attract the right partner, hence we build a happy family, and then the list goes on. So basically, if the foundation is strong, everything else is strong and amazing. So the easiest way is to keep coming back to that core. It's like, by doing this, am I happy, or am I just in a state of, oh, I'm just going to do this so that when I retire, I finally do what I dreamt of, or once accumulate a lot of money, I'm never ever going to touch this again. It just does not work that way. You can make the decision now, today, and just align with that. And just because we see so many examples of how other people per se got to happiness or success, we are afraid to do that because our path is unique, and the nature is trying to copy someone, whereas copying automatically leads to the wrong place, because there are a few billion people on this planet, and everyone's journey is unique. There are overlaps. There are, like, let's call them, like, we can distill it to some major personas or whatever. But even when we distill it to major personas, within that, still every person will have different flavors of how they walk that path. So, but I think due to fear and laziness, people are trying to find this 10-step 10 easy steps to be successful, without even, first of all, understanding what success is and aligning what success is and defining it for themselves. And everybody's looking for those easy guides. And that's another example why all these guides are so popular, is because right now that's the state of the current version of civilization. Hence, everybody's creating guides for everything. So yeah, in a nutshell, just focus on your individual happiness and don't be afraid to walk your own unique path. And walking your own unique path is what's scary, but was exactly what is mostly rewarding. And if we, a lot of people do have fear that they're doing something wrong, because that fear inside exists. And I've experienced this. Like when I was starting to build my first company, everybody's like, you're an idiot. You're like, you have great marks, you got to top engineering school, just complete the school, go work for a great company, great brand, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I just don't feel that's my path. And my whole surrounding all my friends were like kind of laughing at me and pointing fingers. This guy's an idiot. He's wasting all this hard work that he had like good marks, he had good foundation. And it seemed like I threw that out of the window. And then I was also a little bit cruel because a lot of my friends became engineers. And in Canada, you get the Iron Engineering Ring. Yeah, there's basically a bridge that collapsed, and they created an engineering society. And you have to register with this engineering organization that you've passed all the requirements to be an engineer. So you will produce structures or inventions or whatever that will not kill people. Basically, you will support. And that ring is made from the steel of that bridge. So that's the story with this ring, and that's why, like, even Silicon Valley or etc., you see Canadian engineers standing out because all of them have the ring on their pinky, like the metal ring. So I created a new joke because a lot of my friends became engineers. I didn't become an engineer. In the first few years, I was eating shit with a shovel, building a company, bootstrapping it, because it was 2004 venture capital Toronto that did not exist. And then I bought a ring with diamonds. And I was not going to the office. I was only going to the office to collect checks. So my schedule was basically I needed to travel for an hour to collect a lot of money. And I was the asshole side of me. I wanted to rub it in. I was like, cool ring, because they were all walking around. Look at me. I have this job that pays a lot. And I was like eating fucking ramen, making zero money and investing. And then I was like, I don't know. I feel like I still have that ring somewhere, and I'm trying to donate it to someone because I don't wear any jewelry, but that was my fucking moment.
Yeah. Well, we all have the fuck you egotistical moment, I think. Yeah. And then I know from my experience, then, well, at least for me, Matrix slaps you and is like, oh yeah, you think you're so good? Well, let's see, right? Let's see. Right?
Yeah, and then ultimately, and then that's what's interesting. When you get to the state of being happy, it's a state where you don't care to prove anything to anyone.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm happy. I have, even if perceivingly, if I don't have everything I want to have, happy makes you feel whole and complete. And then what it means, everything you have now is more than enough. And that's that shift from scarcity to abundance that everybody talks about, but everybody's meditating to be abundant, have more cars, bigger home. No, it's a completely different state. It's a state of happiness and joy, as we've described, is just a lot of energy traveling through the body, meaning we are where we're supposed to be and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. That's the only requirement for happiness, and everything else is just a theatrical decoration that might create some comfort or pleasure or etc. Everything else is just our alignment or inner state.
That's it. And then if you can't figure out that, just go ask ChatGPT. No, kidding. Kidding. All right.
Could be.
That was that was great. Well, next episode, let's just keep the conversation going and dive in, and I'll have some more questions for you.
Awesome, Mitch. Thank you.
All right, man.